would you let these people in? Because we actually know what we're doing out there.
And what's going on, Read My Lips people? We are back. So, big news pouring in, big things happening. Endorsements are on the rise. Now, if you haven't heard, this Thursday that just passed, Yeun has endorsed Andrew Yang. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Walking Dead star himself has endorsed Andrew Yang. And this is coming right off of the heels of Childish Gambino also endorsing Yang. And not only did he endorse Yang, but he became Yang's creative consultant. Now, this is big because, again, if you go back not too long ago, I was highly in favor of Yang being endorsed by certain celebrities and certain YouTubers. I had mentioned Mr. Beast. Yang's been on H3H3 twice now. So things are happening. The ball is moving. And I like seeing things like this. And I just have a couple quotes from Steven himself, or Glenn. Should we call him Glenn? I'm probably going to go back and forth between Glenn and Steven, so try to keep up. And what they did, you know what? I'm not going to do any spoilers. Not everybody has seen The Walking Dead. If you haven't seen it, you must be The Walking Dead. But Steven said, after meeting and speaking with Andrew Yang several times, he didn't see a traditional politician. He saw a real human being who is authentic and genuinely cares deeply about everyday people in our country. Sounds pretty legit. I think he is rising to the challenge of a new world, and he's uniquely thinking about the future and the life we will leave for our children and further generations. Now, if you remember back during the debate, Yang had, not the last one, but the one before, Yang had the best closing statement, and it was really about the future of children, the future of everyone's children, and leaving it to them, not all corrupt and destroyed and messed up. One thing I always see about, especially older generations, not all older generations, because I definitely have a lot of boomers and older generations that actually watch my channel, and I appreciate every one of you, but they always complain like that the youth have it so easy, which isn't true in the least bit. But they always complain about, you got it so easy, and complain, back in my day I did this, and complain. But isn't that the point? Don't you want to make it easier for them coming up? Why would you want to make it such a shit show? Just a random thought. I would hope we would leave it easier and easier for them. We don't want them to have to go through the bullshit we went through coming up. But yeah, I mean, Steven is right on the money with that. And that makes sense. Yang responded to this. He said he was thrilled to have Yeun as part of the growing Yang gang. So it's official. Steven Yeun is Yang gang. Somebody get him a blue hat. And his story is a true testament to the American dream that immigrants from around the world come to this country to pursue. And it's true. Glenn, Steven, he exudes the American dream, and I have nothing but admiration for him, and he's definitely one of my favorite actors, and I'm happy to have him aboard. So, round of applause for Steven Yeun. This is great. So we got Gambino, we got Yeun, and let's keep them coming. I think people are really starting to realize that Andrew Yang is a real thing. That Andrew Yang isn't just a fly-by-night, politician. He means what he says, and he says what he means. So I'm absolutely happy to have him aboard. Now, Yang's come out with what might be, what some are saying, is his most controversial policy to date. Now, I just want to start off by saying I 100% agree with Andrew Yang and his thoughts on the issue. So Andrew Yang came out with decriminalizing prostitution. And, You know, I do recall him saying this before. I recall him saying this around the time when he was talking about decriminalizing drugs. And it's not something easy to run on. It's really not. It's really not, because a lot of people, just from a morale point of view, can't bring themselves to come to terms with the logistics of it all and how it should be decriminalized. And I mean, on the surface level, we could just talk about, don't tell me what the fuck to do with my body, period. And it's always been weird to me. It's always been weird. Like how I can go, you know, around the entire block and screw everyone for free, but the minute I charge $20 for it, it's a crime. It's just, it's so weird. It's weird. But Yang spoke about this, but before we get into that, I do have a clip from Secular Talk. Kyle Kalinske spoke on it a little bit. We're going to watch that clip, and we're going to come back.
Here's something I like. And this is yet again him wandering into a minefield to shift the Overton window, and he's correct on this in my opinion. So he tweeted, "We should consider decriminalizing sex work on the part of the seller. It would be helpful in combating human trafficking. Many sex workers are themselves victims." Now, he doesn't go as far as I would like. I think it should be legalized, taxed, and regulated at the federal level. But as far as I know, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, please correct me by all means, but I think he's the only candidate who's taken this position and has taken this stance and has made this an issue at all. And that's bold. That's bold because, listen, I do think that he can now be maligned as like, why is he even talking about this issue? It's like only like, you know, like awkward and horny dudes who would bring up this issue of sex workers' rights and, you know, take this position on it. Now, I don't think that's true at all. I think that it's a political issue like any other political issue, and I think our laws right now on it are atrocious and abysmal. And yet again, I think this is him saying, let's take a step in the right direction, and he should be commended for that. Now, what's fascinating is there's actually disagreement on the left over this. And for those of you who are unaware of it, one of my intellectual heroes doesn't have my position on this, Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is of the belief that basically if you address the material conditions that lead to poverty in the first place, that nobody would feel compelled to wind up in the sex work industry. That's what he believes. Now, and there are other people. I think Chris Hedges, too, is not with me on this issue. And I think for Chris Hedges, it might go back to more of his religious beliefs because he is a religious man. And so I think maybe the religious beliefs feed his beliefs and his policy position on sex work. But anyway, the point is, there is a disagreement on the left. There are many people on the left who take my position of legalizing, taxing, and regulating is the only rational approach. And then there are people who take the Chomsky position or the Chris Hedges position of like, well, actually, no, the religious right is actually correct on this by accident when they say that, you know, sex work should be banned. But if you kind of address the material conditions that lead to poverty in the first place, then functionally it will end up being banned, and you don't even necessarily need to ban it, I don't think, for it to be not in existence in their mind. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do want laws on the books, but my interpretation, my perception of the Chomsky position was if you just address the poverty, sex work industry goes away. Me, I have a different view of human nature in the sense that I think there's always going to be sex, so there's always going to be sex work, and there are going to be people, regardless of how they came to the position where they get in the industry, there are going to be people who are in that industry.
So I'm halfway with Yang. I think he's got part of it. But he's not all there with it. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. So Andrew Yang said, we should consider decriminalizing sex work on the part of the seller, as this would be helpful in combating human trafficking. Presumably, Yang is talking about prostitution, the form of sex work that is illegal in the U.S. even when all parties involved are consenting adults. Here's the thing. The customer and the seller shouldn't be criminalized. It's not just the seller. As a matter of fact, decriminalizing it for just the seller, but then taking the customer to jail, doesn't make sense either. It really doesn't. And if you look at it in any other aspect, for anything, it doesn't make sense. And maybe Yang's kind of easing into this, because when you first announced this kind of thing, some people are taking aback. Some people are shocked and agra. But it shouldn't be illegal for neither parties. He's 100% right. It would help in combating human trafficking, which is huge, which is, a major issue. So, sex workers, human rights organizations, criminal justice reforms around the world have been fighting to decriminalize prostitution in places where it remains illegal, or restrictions on legal prostitution are so intense that the sex workers end up pretty much criminalized anyway. And look, these activists argue with both a lot of data and a lot of personal experiences on their side. So they have the facts, and they have relative arguments. And look, so with what Andrew's trying to, with only half the solution that Andrew's talking about, with the sellers, not being prosecuted, but the customers being prosecuted, it would still mean that, law enforcement resources would be devoted to catching people attempting to pay for sex, pretty much. And that would mean monitoring and conducting stings on sex workers still. Sex workers would still be unable to advertise openly, to band together for safer working conditions, to screen clients. I mean, Kamala Harris, obviously I couldn't stand Kamala, but she was for decriminalizing prostitution too, as well. But she, sort of similar to Yang, she took the stance of, we'd still get the Johns though. What's the point? So it's still a criminal act. You're still making it a criminal act, in my opinion. So the seller's not in trouble, but the John, he's going to jail. Why is he going to jail if it's decriminalized? No, we need not a half measure, but for something like this, we need the full extent. So Yang is right on the issue that it needs to be decriminalized. He's halfway there, and hopefully, the whole thing gets decriminalized for both the seller and the customer, because quite frankly, the way that it is, it doesn't make any sense. And again, my take on it, and this is just my opinion, I think Yang is kind of easing people into it instead of just hitting them all at once. And right now, he's the only person on that stage that is vying for this. He's the only person on the stage that's actually mentioned this, and I think he's the only person on the stage that's for decriminalizing most drugs as well. So he's taken some bold stances, and you gotta admire him for it. One of my issues with Bernie was he wasn't for decriminalizing all drugs. He's just not there yet. Well, when are you going to be there, Bernie? It's weird, because Bernie's really progressive in majority of issues, right? Some could say to too much of an extent, but for some reason on the issue with drugs, he's just not there yet, which is really weird, because you'd think he'd be progressive on that as well. He's for legalizing marijuana, but I file that under no duh. Like that's easy at this point in the game in 2019. If you're not for legalizing marijuana, tap out. Don't even run. Like, why are you even running? So yeah, people are saying that this is Yang's most controversial policy. I think it's a common sense policy. I wish he were to go a little bit farther on it, but again, I think he's going to get there. I think he will get there. I think he's just easing people into it. The fact that he's the only one even talking about it right now is incredible. And shout out to Kamala Harris. She was for that as well, but again, she was only for a halfway measure. But she's out of here. So right now, Yang's the only one that's talking about it. So I just wanted to bring you those two stories. Now, I want you all to remember, I am trying to get an interview with Evelyn Yang. The Secure the Yang Challenge is up, and it's being hosted by Paget Kagi right now, and I just really want this interview. I tried to get one with Andrew last month. It didn't happen. It ended up being Kai, Paget, and Hustle. It was an amazing interview. And my channel managed to raise over $2,000, so I thank you all. But we're in it to win it. And now the Secure the Yang Challenge is an interview with Evelyn, and I think Evelyn and I could have an incredible interview, and we'd have a whole different subset of questions. So, if you guys would like to see that happen, there is an ActBlue link in the description below. We're trying to raise $50,000 for Yang by the end of the month. If you're going to donate to Andrew Yang, do it through my ActBlue link. I implore you. That helps my channel get to the #1 spot to interview Evelyn. So, let's make that happen. And if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like, comment, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. If you don't, let me know in the comment section why. I'm always down to talk about it. Also, I have a PayPal, a Cash App, and a Venmo link in the description below. Look, guys, I'm trying to go to New Hampshire to hang out with Grassroots Yang Gang, Russell from Grassroots, and to meet Andrew Yang. But hotels are obnoxiously expensive on New Year's Eve. So any donations I get would be going to an hotel stay because it's New Year's. They're going to be ridiculously expensive, and I don't want to drive back 2 in the morning with, drunk drivers and etc. on the roads. It's just not safe. So if you want me to meet Yang and on New Year's and hang out with Russell, please donate through one of those links below in the description so I can, put that to a hotel. It'd be greatly appreciated. Hopefully I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.